Ever since the very beginning of Assassin's Creed as a series, it has always had the same formula. There was always a secret war going on between assassins and Templars in an ancient battle to basically get the upper hand on ancient artifacts that came from the first civilization. The assassins are able to get around using parkour methods and have a bunch of things like hidden blades and other weapons that they use in order to defeat their enemies. This even happens in the Chronicle games, which are side-scrollers, which a lot of people really weren't partial to. I enjoyed it, though. Now, by the time we get to Assassin's Creed Odyssey, we find that there isn't most of that. There isn't any hidden blades. There are no assassins because they weren't around yet. There were no Templars. There is a secret society, but there's none of that. The only really binding tie is the ancient civilization, the first civilization, the precursors, the first civ. And they leave behind a bunch of apples of Eden in this game that actually give me pause, and really there's a lot of questions I have about those things and what's going on with like all the previous games. Did really like Ezio and all those other assassins not know the power that they held in their hand? Aside from like the infinite knowledge, I mean, there's a couple of things that the apples of Eden, the pieces of Eden here can do that no one else can. And it makes me wonder. So we're going to dive into that right now. I'm letting you know right now that there's going to be some big spoilers, okay? We're talking about all kinds of stuff in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, as well as previous entries. So if you're not ready for this, if you're not ready to know what's up with the pieces of Eden, I say turn this off now until you finish a couple of those games. Otherwise, stick around. I'm Darkstrider, and this is a brief history of what's going on with the pieces of Eden, as well as what does it mean for future games. In the original Assassin's Creed, we discover that the Assassins and the Templars are fighting over what is known as a piece of Eden in reality, but they believe it's the apple of Eden, the very apple that Adam and Eve got kicked out of Eden for. It isn't until we get to Assassin's Creed 2 that we discover that there is a whole nother civilization that predated mankind. And it's just absolutely incredible as to like what ended up happening. We discover that there were precursors, they created mankind, and what we believe in the biblical sense of Adam and Eve was actually the first man and woman, not really.
Eve!
Look out! Wow.
They were actually two humans that escaped from the Eden compound, which we changed around in a biblical sense in the Bible, apparently to explain Genesis, but that's not what happened. And as you saw, there was more than one apple, there was more than one piece of Eden. Ever since Assassin's Creed 2, we've actually found evidence about apples. And the apples are not really evidence, they're actually supposed to be biblical or, like historical things relating to what we believed was the apple And it actually had nothing to do with apples like in the story of Genesis. It had to do with the actual piece of Eden. One of the craziest things in Assassin's Creed 2 is that they also imply that a lot of world leaders and other people around the world actually held these pieces of Eden and used it to their advantage. Could you imagine if history was actually written because all of these famous people throughout history actually had pieces of Eden, this apple, which gave them knowledge beyond human comprehension, and they actually used it to their advantage? Could you imagine? It is, in fact, completely suggested that a lot of even current historical figures had pieces of Eden. And as you can see, the apples of Eden, there are multiples of it, which is kind of wild. As you saw, that was piece of Eden 3. This is piece of Eden 1. And you'll even see here, this is going to be piece of Eden 2. It's really strange how they ended up doing this. It implies that there are more than one of these apples, but that's not all that they have. Assassin's Creed 2 also showed us that there are other pieces of Eden besides the apples, which, I mean, if you really look into the story, is actually pretty incredible. So we go throughout history, like here's King Arthur, Joan of Arc, and in all these little historical stories, we find that they actually have a sword. So here's piece of Eden 25, which is absolutely amazing, but that's not all. That is not the only piece of Eden. There is also a staff. So we have John the Baptist, and it's just amazing how they figured out all of this basically in ancient history. So these are all different things going on here. Piece of Eden 34, the staff. We even have a mystery item, which actually, as you can see, was around in the times of Christ, but more recently made an appearance in the recent comic book series dealing with Juno. As you can see, 66, the shroud. Now, the reason that I bring all that up and I give you a little history on the pieces of Eden is because Assassin's Creed Odyssey actually turns that on its head. We're made to believe that all of the mythical creatures, the Medusa, the Cyclops, the Minotaur, and the Sphinx, are all something to do with the pieces of Eden. And it's very weird how it's done. And it's even weirder when we get to the end. I want you to pay attention to each and every one of these creatures that I defeat. And I want you to pay special attention to the endings of those creatures. So we've defeated the Minotaur, and we pull its horn off. Pay close attention. We even get to remove the eye of the Cyclops. Again, watch what happens after we remove it. Watch what's going on here. Pay very close attention. Towards the end. And now we take the feather from the Sphinx, but look very closely. It looks almost like it's trying to possess Cassandra. Becomes the apple, and then what's left behind is a humanoid figure. The reason I even mention anything about the Sphinx and I walked you step by step is because by the time we get to the Medusa, the whole storyline is basically that Bryce recognizes Medusa as Legia. So, did Legia somehow grab the piece of Eden, the apple, and become the Medusa? Is that what happened to all of those Guardians? So this poses a lot of questions. Now, we'll take one of Medusa's snakes from her head. And again, here's the fight. And the transformation into the piece of Eden. Another really curious thing is that the different pieces of Eden, although you see that they say that they're pulsing with energy, they do look a little different from each other. As you can see, the Cyclops one is way off color as opposed to the other ones, which is kind of odd. I mean, not necessarily odd because it's possible that they had different orientations or colors or anything like that, but it just shows how different each of these things are. Another kind of strange thing that may have been an oversight on the part of Ubisoft, they added 2 new Cyclops later on in this game, and you know, they were basically like bosses that you could fight, and they give you like some stuff, they give you weapons, which are pretty cool, but after you defeat them, they never explain how these 2 Cyclops even came into existence, which is kind of weird. There is no orbs that you could pull from them, there's no pieces of Eden, no apples or anything like that that would explain how they came into existence. As you saw with all the other creatures, they came into existence through the pieces of Eden, and that's how they explain mythical beasts, which I think is actually like a pretty cool way of explaining all those legends. Just think about that. Werewolves, vampires, any weird thing like that that you may have heard, any crazy stories, anything growing up like that, any movie magic that you've ever seen or heard about as far as monsters go, it's entirely possible that they were just something that happened when somebody got a hold of a piece of Eden and they weren't strong enough to actually resist. As you saw with Cassandra, every time she grabbed one of those things, there was a little struggle, but she overcame it. She resisted it. So, I mean, like I said, that's a pretty cool explanation for all these things, but these 2 Cyclops, the Stormbringer and the other one in the Bay of Nobody, I don't know why they didn't explain that these guys were created through the same kind of methods, that they were created when they got a hold of pieces of Eden. I think it would have been cool. There is like one other crazy thing that happens in this game that kind of blew my mind as well. As of yet, we don't have the Atlantis DLC. It hasn't come out yet, but there is a storyline in which you met your father, Pythagoras, and you actually had to go and use all of the different pieces of Eden in order to seal Atlantis. So each one of these artifacts is basically a key, but they also drop some knowledge on you from the past, from the Isu.
I understand.
We also know by the end of this timeline, Pythagoras actually gives Cassandra the Staff of Hermes. It is the very artifact that has kept him alive for years. And now Cassandra bears it, so she will be kept alive for years. So we eventually get to a point in the future with Layla Hassan where she is in Atlantis and we're searching for the staff. Obviously Cassandra would have it, but pay attention to Cassandra's intro when she comes in. Look at what she's holding at first and watch what happens to it.
True knowledge exists in knowing that you know nothing.
Did you see that? She had a piece of Eden, an apple, and it became the staff. How on earth is that possible? This opens up a lot of questions in regards to the pieces of Eden, and especially the apples themselves.
Understand? Please wait. I have so many questions.
We've seen where the apple has been used as a key. It's been used as all kinds of other things. It's even interacted with the staff in order to open up this secret area in which they were able to speak to Desmond through Ezio. We saw that the papal staff was actually a piece of Eden, which we knew from like other stuff, and we knew that the apple was actually meant to connect with the papal staff. It's actually taken from here because Rodrigo Borgia actually removed it, but if you got to the end of the original Assassin's Creed 2, he actually connected it, and that's how he opened this secret room. So now, this whole history lesson, it actually has a purpose behind it. It actually gives me a lot of things to think about. It gives me a lot of questions that now I really do need answered. Assassin's Creed Odyssey comes chronologically way before any of the other Assassin games if we're looking at the dives into the past. Okay? The Peloponnesian War came before all the events of Origins, came before all the events of the original Assassin's Creed, everything in Italy with Ezio, and so forth and so on as we continue down the line, you know, putting it, like I said, in chronological order. I may have put it out of order in a couple of places, but that's not the point. The point is, if this is the starting point, and we have these pieces of Eden that come from the Minotaur's horn, the Medusa's head snake, a feather from the Sphinx, the eye of the Cyclops, and they transform people into those creatures. And then even we have the actual staff of Hermes that, as you saw in the video, it actually becomes the staff, but initially it's one of the pieces of Eden. It's an apple and then becomes a staff. Did the other assassins in all the other games not know that the apples could transform? We've seen in other Assassin's Creed games how the apples have been used to manipulate humankind, just like it did in the little Adam and Eve segment. We've seen that Ezio and even the leader of the first Assassin's Creed game, they were able to deceive people and make, multiple copies of themselves and everything like that. These things can do so many things and really like mess with your mind. But the biggest mess with my mind right now is, can these things transform? Can they transform people? And can they transform other, themselves into other objects? Is the sword that we see in Assassin's Creed in part 2 when we're doing those sequences, did it actually come from one of these apples? Was the shroud an apple and it just becomes a shroud? What causes that to happen? What causes that transformation?
Strange artifact left behind by...
So what does this mean for past assassins? All the other assassins from other Assassin's Creed games that we played. Did they not know that their piece of Eden could transform? Or are only specific pieces of Eden able to transform? What is that about?
Fall into pieces, and if you don't find a way to wake up, you may lose yourself forever.
Group that now had Desmond.
Neither the Templars nor the Assassins understood
we know them as the
that
Templars.
These things may have been dangerous, that they may have been able to transform.
Even longer if you believe the stories of their origins. I do. After Altair and the abilities of Ezio, he holds in his hands the apple of Eden,
also,
and we stand at
what
his
does
side
this
ready
mean
to support him,
for the
however
present-day
we can.
assassins?
His name
Will we
is
understand
Desmond
that
Miles, and
it
he has brought us
actually has multiple uses? So, tell me, what do you think? Do you think that the pieces of Eden actually all transform? Do you think that maybe we missed something? Maybe there actually are extra weapons. Maybe in future games they're going to transform into other things. Do you think that all pieces of Eden start out looking like the apple, but will discover that they're able to transform into other things? And do you think that the former assassins just really didn't know this? Let me know your comments below. Let me just know what you think. I'm really curious to know what everybody thinks of this. It actually blew my mind when I started playing this game, and out of nowhere, we started having all these other things going on with these pieces of Eden. Again, let me know in the comments below. Other than that, I really hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe. It helps the channel out an awful lot. And as always, thank you for watching.